can I say the return of India's favorite Bahu?
Or maybe Saas.
Which is it, Saas or Bahu?
I don't care as long as the paycheck is good.
I want to get to the paycheck in just a second. But Smriti Irani, how did this happen? 25 years later, the decision that you were actually going to walk back on set and go back to Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi. What made you want to do this?
I think it's a great way of testing your potential, your mettle, your legacy. And if it makes sense in a multimedia world, that means that your talent has stood the test of time. People may not remember, but 25 years ago, when we came onto screen, it was at 10:30 in the night where half the world had gone to sleep. The fact that it was a female producer, the fact that what was of paramount importance is that the female actors on the show became the fulcrum of the show. The fact that we had an Amitabh Bachchan on, national prime time, and we were at the tail end. And the fact that we could create prime time without the Instagram sensations that envelop a lot of today legacy stars, we did make television matter. So will that television property today matter in the world of OTT? It seems we've done stupendously well on OTT as well. So I think the whole premise that I could get to leverage that legacy, that craft, and make it relatable even now for not only Saases and Bahus, but families in urban India at large, that for me is of great, I think, satisfaction.
But did you not worry about the fact that this is going to be seen as a move away from public life and from politics? I know a lot of people have been tweeting you saying, ma'am, is this a sabbatical? And you've been responding saying, no, you're a full-time politician and a part-time actor. But did you not worry?
I think that if I was not politically as viable or as palatable as I was, Shirin Bhan would not be interviewing me. One also has to be mindful of the fact that जो लोग इतना चिंतन करते हैं कि उनको अगर कुछ नया करना है तो उससे डैमेज होगा तो वो लेगेसी नहीं बनाते, इतिहास नहीं बनाते. If I was limited to the maryada of what I presumed was my capacity, I wouldn't be who I am and what I am today.
Unapologetically, Smriti Irani is who you are. But, let's talk about that paycheck, Smriti Irani. You were already, 25 years ago, the highest paid actor in the industry on television. And I believe those numbers are astronomical today.
Yes. So to all the ladies in the room, we are always told to be very, very coy, timid, and not be very abrasive or very, very popularly, subtly, though loud about our paychecks. I say scream away, because when you get a paycheck, that is in some way a certification of how you're valued as a professional. And for me to start at the bottom of the pyramid and work my way right up to the top is something that I want every girl or woman to emulate from a personal ambition point of view. For too long, we were told that it is good enough to have a seat at the table. I think women today not only want that seat at the table, they want the capital, they want the confidence, and they want a clear pathway to scale their capacities. And you should not be shy about it. So people do at times question me, कि हो आपको इतना पैसा मिल रहा है? And they think that I'll cringe. I'm like, हाँ जी मिल रहा है, बताइए, आपको ज़्यादा देना है as an actor. That's because I created a market value for myself, but I also added value to people who worked with me. Today, when I go to work, I help get 150 people employment. And all of them then get competitive paychecks. That's because I'm a part of the project. And if you can create that economic capacities for fellow professionals, that is not something that you should shy away from. That is an achievement not many can talk about.
So, have you now moved to the film compensation, well beyond the TV compensation that we're used to?
I made myself a part of a very, very effective team that made TV and its economies parallel to that of a movie, that made a television project as competitive on OTT, and no such project has existed yet. I can very confidently and modestly say that there is nothing on television in dramas today that can revisit their legacy 25 years from now with the same cast, the same platform, the same producer. So the fact that you have made a habit of creating history is something that I'm extremely grateful for.
Well, creating history is what she is hoping to do now with her return back to television. But
And that is done.
that's done.
That's created. Next.
Next. Well, so what was it like for you to be back on set? Was that the easy part? What is the challenging part? What are you enjoying the most about being back?
I think the fact that when I left television and my television and my political career were consistently rolling out, many people in the media business thought that politics is not some place that I can make a mark in. The fact that when I came into politics, and publicly so, there were many who presumed that on issues of policy, I will not have enough impetus, or for that matter, enough evidence to showcase my political acumen or administrative acumen. The fact that I am genuinely blessed to be one of the rare ones, in fact, the only one, who has managed to write national policies, that being of education, who has managed to create HSN codes in technical textiles which did not exist in the history of our country's economy. The fact that I managed to create even digital governance tools which have received the highest award by the Prime Minister on Civil Service Days, that being Poshan. So there hasn't been a single ministry that I've been a part of which did not create governance history. At the same time, politically, I've been possibly the only person in the history of Indian politics that has defeated the national president of the Indian National Congress. That hasn't happened before. I don't envisage that it'll happen in the near future. The fact that you take a fight to a political borough of a legendary political family is not something that many people can tom-tom about. And I believe that my life's journey, though in politics or in media, if I look at it, reflect on it, it's about taking that opportunity which nobody would touch to say, I can make the impossible happen. So if you have that...
Where does that come from? The audacity.
By just being a woman.
Audacity to say, I can make it happen. Where does that come from?
I think women are generally, genetically, inherently audacious. बस मौका चाहिए.
मौका चाहिए.
I always say women don't invite fights, but if you bring a fight to a woman, God help you.
Which is the fight that you've enjoyed the most?
It's always the preparation, in fact. It is the aftermath, success or failure, which I've enjoyed the most. Because the fight in itself is a culmination of that journey. For me, the prep means I get to meet people from all walks of life. For me, the prep means I get to measure everybody's experiences. For me, the prep means I also study everybody's successes and failures. For me, the prep politically when I fought Amethi was also about doing something nobody else had dared do. There were legends like Sharad Yadav, Maneka Gandhi who had fought. They are legends in Indian politics who had their deposits, zamanat zabt ho gayi thi. For me to go and become the first person to complete a tenure of 5 terms, for me to be in that position, help build homes for 1 lakh families, help build the first 200-bed hospital for women and children there, help build the first medical college, the first fire station. Those are the achievements that I hold dear. Because why did I get into politics? I did not get into it for the fame or the money. God was very kind to me in the media business. I got in because I wanted to showcase that citizens at large, especially professionals, when they choose to politically contribute, they can maximize the potential of the community that they are serving. So for me to have set that standard or benchmark is something that I'm very proud of. And the aftermath, like I said, not everything you do will succeed. My life has been about going from one failure to another and succeeding in between. And I've always said कि मेरी किस्मत हमेशा जीतने नहीं लिखी, मेरी किस्मत actually कई बार हारने लिखी है. So if you can do that and still have an enthusiasm for life, I think that's the biggest drive for me.
But you said that failure has taught you and failure has helped you evolve into who you are today. What are the biggest lessons that you take away from a setback? What are the biggest lessons that you take away from a failure or an event that does not go as per your own
I
expectations?
think what is extremely comfortable is when people don't see you coming. That's the greatest advantage. When they think you're not capable. Use it as an instrument and leverage it to success. The problem happens when people think that nothing that you do will fail, that you will succeed no matter what, that you will be tenacious no matter what. That means they think they have figured you out. So how do you reinvent yourself? How do you reposition yourself? How do you create a narrative about yourself? Because for too long in our country, in our culture, we have told women that they should not have a narrative, that those women do best who are unheard, who are in the shadows, who barely speak, who barely stand up. Now to change that mindset and say, stand up. It doesn't matter whether you're knocked down. Just keep standing back up. That is a big journey unto itself. So for me, I came from a culture which said, "Arey, tum kaam karogi." I'm the first daughter in my family to work. And then to say, "Arey, tumko media mein jana hai." I'm the first woman in my community to go to media. "Arey, tumko politics mein jana hai." I'm the first, forget woman, man, I'm the first person to go into active politics. So to not deny yourself that opportunity, I think that is something that I have learned. What failure does to you is to give you the psychology of not being fearless anymore. And that is what you need to deny your failure, that you will be fearless in your choices. It is not possible that you will succeed every time. It is not possible that you're flawless. Because if you were flawless, you would not be a human being, you would be God. So accept the fact that you will be flawed. Accept the fact that when you make a mistake, be magnanimous enough to yourself to say, I made a mistake. And people are quintessentially nice enough to forgive you. But learn to accept that hard reality and truth in life.
You know, what are Smriti Irani's flaws today?
Well, my strength is my flaw. Yeah.
So you
Because people always have people that they can depend on. I'm that people.
you're your own person.
Yes, and your strength becomes your flaw. Because your audacity, for some people,
Can be too much.
can be too much. But I don't know any other way of living. For if I was not audacious, if I was not blunt, life is so short. Can you imagine cringing in a corner while life passes you by just because you're seeking validation from somebody? People are quintessentially inclined to seek validation because that's how they create value for themselves. And the only person that creates value for me is me.
But did you always think like this, or is it?
Yes, even
or
when
you
I
were-
was a
even
kid.
25 years ago.
Even when I was 7 years old. That
Even
was
when
the
you were
most
7 years
irritating
old, you
thing
looked in
about
the
me.
mirror. You looked in the mirror, and you didn't want
No, I
external
don't
validation.
look at the mirror. I
You
don't
look
have
in the
that
mirror.
Nibs and Boons complex. I was too busy leading life to look at the mirror. But I did this even when I was 7 years old. And I was on the streets when I was 7. My parents did not have money. We are sitting today at Taj. In Taj Mansingh, my mother was a housekeeper. Right now, we are like 5 minutes away from Dholakwa Bus Adda. My father and I were on the street selling books when I was 7 years old. Even then, on the streets, I used to tell my dad, you know, there's the army club. One day, those men in uniform will salute me. My father thought I was mad, but the men ended up saluting me. So it is about, I think you're either born with it, because when you have nothing, then you fear nothing.
Yeah, that's the mantra for the fearless Smriti Irani.
No, that's just the mantra for Smriti Irani. To presume that I will not be fearful is to presume that I'm not human. But possibly what is different about me is I know how to process rejection. I know how to process fear. I know how to process complexities. That's it. The only difference between possibly me and somebody else you may interview is I recognize that emotion, I process it, instead of letting that emotion overwhelm me or the situation overwhelm me.
Well, speaking of complexities, we're in a very complex global order today.
Tell me about it.
What do you make of what's going on, and what do you believe India's position and approach should be to navigate through these complex times?
I think we are very mindful of geopolitical intent to push around a country as large as us as a consumption base, as diverse as us in terms of our talent and latent potential, but at the same time, the aspiration that we have that being the fourth largest economy would not suffice for us. Now, looking at the geopolitical order, especially from a perspective of economy and technology, we will be faced with many so-called friends who will try to elbow us out of the room, who are too used to a subjugated lot. So what you see around us is a recalibration of geopolitical forces. I think the leadership today is playing their cards well. They have been very pragmatic. They have been very internationally stoic. And they have been very, very forceful in their response, especially the MEA statement under the Prime Minister's leadership on the purchase of Russian oil. And I believe even the recalibration of the neighborhood ties speaks volumes that this is not a leadership that is waiting in the wings for some repercussion for it to just respond.
You mean the re-engagement with China, for instance?
Yes. So I believe that even repositioning or re-looking at the perspectives in the neighborhood is worthy of applause. The fact that we are playing our cards close to the chest, the fact that we have negotiators who are not perturbed by just the loudness of the breach of relationships speaks volumes and is a great compliment to our negotiating team and our leadership.
Well, we will have to wait to see how all of this plays out. Of
It'll
course,
play out well for India.
you think so?
I think so. I think that if the evidence in the room would suggest, I've always been of the belief, and you do a very, very profoundly impactful program called Female Future Forward. I think you have a leadership which recognizes that your economy cannot grow to its full potential if half the population is reduced to the sidelines. The only difference is that the next time we have a She Shakti, we have half the room full with men. Because women know what the issues are. Women know what the responses should be.
Yeah.
Women know what are the strategies that need to be employed. We need the men on board.
Yes, we do need the men on board. But speaking of getting more women to participate in the formal economy, getting more women to become entrepreneurs, more economic empowerment, you know, you've been championing this for a while now, starting with the World Economic Forum in Davos, and that's now picking up pace and momentum. Take us through where things currently stand, and what is the dream, and is that the passion project for Smriti Irani today?
Yeah, I think while everybody is so focused on my Saas Bahu, from tomorrow onwards I start a new journey. And it is very, very, I think, prophetic that I'm on the She Shakti platform today to speak about it. We hope to go in the next 1.5 years to 300 cities across country and meet with 1 lakh women-owned businesses. The partnership is with the British Council so that women in the MSME segment who want to become a part of the global supply chain. They are proficient in the English business language. We are partnering with the ICAI, which is the Chartered Accountants Institute and Regulator, the ICSI, which is the Company Secretary Regulatory Institution. We also have Deloitte as a knowledge partner. And I believe that one of the strengths that we are hoping to unleash is the economic strength. When we talk about our economy and we talk about women-led enterprise, there's a lot of focus that the Prime Minister, and very rightly so, has brought to the self-help group movement in our country, which has now 10 crore women. Their annual economic turnaround in the country has been valued at around $37 billion. But if you look at just the potential of women in the MSME sector today, women-owned MSMEs and small businesses are to the tune of 16 million, which employ close to 2.8 crore people in our country. But that's just 20% of the MSME landscape in the formal segment. What is a challenge is that the informal micro enterprises, women-owned businesses are 70%. just like agriculture, the participation in the informal segments is outdoing the formal engagement. So I'm hoping that with this effort, we can bring more and more formalization of women who are entrepreneurs so that there is an enhanced access to credit and not small credit, but huge capital, where we can help possibly small businesses become mid-sized companies, because that's the ambition now women entrepreneurs in our country need to have. That for too long, we've been a part of the entry pipelines, become medium-sized companies. Go to the market, unleash your money's worth.
You know, unleash your money's worth, but what's the big deterrent there, and what are you hoping to solve for? Access to credit, of course, is the big constraint and the big challenge, but what else are you hoping to solve for with this initiative?
I think compliance is a big issue. To understand compliance, to understand a balance sheet, to recognize how to leverage that balance sheet in the market, to enhance not only capital access but also productivity is an issue today that needs to get addressed. The studies that have been undertaken by various agencies have shown that women-owned enterprises, they have seen an increase of 12% in revenue and around 19% in the net income in every month. The issue is, if these numbers exist, why are we not able to leverage it for the scaling up of such enterprise? So my effort is going to be to pick those women who are in the informal MSME segments to see how can they get formalized, so that if the government is giving enough support in the agencies of skilling, in the agencies of technology, or for that matter, even small machine tools, how do you make those women get that information? So if we want to enhance productivity in the age of AI, how many women know some kind of a synthesis between, let's say, technology and their business needs? But most women are focused on their local markets or the markets within their state. Very few women are looking at exports. So if you look at the numbers of 2024, of all the exports that were done out of India, only 8% were done by women-owned businesses. So what deters a woman from exploring the export market? And those who are already a part of the export regime, how can you help them look for new markets? So this is a wide canvas, and we need everybody to pitch in and everybody to help.
Well, you know, if you were to start up today, Smriti Irani, what would you start up? What kind of enterprise would you fund? What kind of enterprise would you hope to start?
I think enterprise technology. Today, when we talk about AI and we talk about technology, we are looking mostly at building applications on core technology, which is owned mostly by the West. If we want to thrive as an economy, what is the basic scientific discovery that we make happen in small pockets of our country? If you look at scientific enterprise, you will see that in research you have 70% women. But if you ask how many women take their scientific innovations or discoveries to commerce, that number then sharply falls to 25 to 30%. So one, if I would pitch in fact, I have advised on 2 startups. One is in health, which is going to leverage the APL universe and make affordable healthcare possible. I'm very, very grateful that the seed fund to build the platform comes from Bill Gates himself. These are, I think, the pockets that need to get leveraged. Healthcare, education, there is much investment which is happening. But I also believe that if we can do something with the linguistic capacities of our country and leverage it for business, that is again going to unleash a lot of potential.
Well, speaking of linguistic capacities, how many languages do you actually speak?
I speak the language of money, and then
that without a doubt.
And I do speak around 7-8 languages.
7-8 languages that you're fluent in. So, you know, as young women watching this program here.
Why only young women?
I mean, okay, women watching this program
today. There's
today.
this big problem. I think what is happening is there's so much focus on the young. It's as if if you're 30 and 40, you're dead.
No.
So when you're 18, how many women in the house who have? Because I've had this issue where suddenly I'm sitting there and somebody asks me, "Ek safed baal dikh raha hai, chupa do." I'm like, why? The issue is when you're, and I've said this before, when you're 18 and 20, they say you're too young. Then you're 25 to 30, they say, "Arey, shadi nahi hui." Then you're 30 to 35, they say, अरे बच्चा हो गया. Then you're 35 to 40, they say, अच्छा बच्चा बोर्ड एग्जाम दे रहा है. Then you're 45 to 50, they say, oh, menopausal. And then you're 50 and they say, oh, make way for the 20-year-old. And when you're 60, they say, अरे अभी भी हो. So there is no age which is a good age for a woman. I have one Neena Gupta बिचारा who's getting trolled. अरे आप तो इतनी उम्र हो गई आपने स्कर्ट पहनी है. But then an 18-year-old is getting hassled क्योंकि स्कर्ट पहनी है. And then I'm getting asked, अरे आपने साड़ी क्यों पहनी है? I'm like, so it seems that no matter what you wear, no matter what you say, no matter what your age, no matter what your language, no matter where and who and what you belong to, if you're a woman, you need to carry an explanation docket with you.
Yes, and a very long one at that.
My belief is, anybody who cares for you, who doesn't judge you whether you're successful or you fail, whether you're in the spotlight or somewhere in the shadows, if you genuinely, truly want to, only give an explanation to them. Because the rest of the world anyways doesn't care.
Or matter.
Even if it matters, it doesn't care. So those who don't care for you, those who won't be around you, stop seeking their validation. If you have a white hair, if you're menopausal, embrace it. Especially if you see somebody who's a senior. My request today to all the young girls, since you want me to only give some message to young girls.
No, I was only asking for a message for the young women because
Is to sit with the old ones. Because they have fought a battle at a time where these battles were not spoken of. Today it's easy to fight your battle. Today it's not completely easy, but it's comparatively easy to sit with the ones with the white hair because they knew how to succeed when the whole world was against
And that's
them.
exactly why I was asking you for a message for the young women, because you've been there, seen that, worn the t-shirt.
That's a very elegant way of calling me old, but thank you.
But so before I let you go, I know we can continue for a long time, and this audience is probably going to lap up every word that you say, but we do have to close. Before I let you go, what is the ambition that you have for yourself today? Given everything that you've already accomplished.
Who says I've already accomplished?
No, I'm saying given everything that you've already accomplished.
But who says it's accomplished?
What would you call
I'm
it?
in two fields, politics and media. It's very rare to find successes in both fields. Forget the woman aspect. Even men cannot succeed. For me, quintessentially, at the end of the day, how will I view myself? It's only when I die that those who've competed with me will say, thank God. And those that I worked with, that possibly I mattered to, they say when I pass, and she was a good egg. She was nice. That's what matters.
Smriti Irani, thank you for being here this evening. Thank you for being refreshingly candid, and thank you always for your enthusiasm and your energy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, the inimitable Smriti Irani. A big round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you so much, Smriti ji, for that very insightful conversation. I request you to please stay on stage, ma'am.